everyone, what's up? Today, I want to talk to you about cameras, specifically what food photographers should be looking for in cameras. You know, I get asked a lot about what kind of camera people should buy for food photography, or is camera X good for food photography? And I got a whole lot of articles on my blog about all the awesome gear that I love to use, but I guess I've never really explained the type of camera food photographers should be looking out for. I mean, let's face it, we all get gear lust at some point, and they suck us in with those advertisements of the latest new camera with the shiny new buttons and the grandioso specs, and they always promise better photos with more megapixels and higher ISOs and faster autofocus and just more. But, do we need all that? Oh, by the way, I know it kind of seems like I'm pointlessly walking through the woods, but I'm actually not. This is just a little trail that goes to the general store here in town. But back to cameras, I think the latest hype around the newest camera, is kind of ridiculous for us to get sucked into, especially for us food photographers. What's funny is we don't need 90% of what a modern camera can do to perform our type of photography. What we need is a box that can capture light, preferably a digital one. I've sat down to make this video twice now. I guess I'm just really conflicted about the subject. One end, I want to say, forget that camera and focus on your stories, not the gear. But on the other end, there is that minimal measure. There's just the gear that you have to have, and a camera is one of them. And trust me, I'm the biggest photography nerd around. I love gear, and I want more of it. But if I say to you, go out and buy that new camera or those new lenses or that light or those great backdrops, and it doesn't go to further your story or your compositions, then what's the point? So I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you have a camera already, even if it's old, and you're a beginner, you're just starting out, then use that. And instead of getting a new camera, we should focus on building better compositions, on mastering that light and creating great stories. I mean, the camera is such a small part of food photography. And if you have one already and you're wanting to upgrade just to get the latest features and the newest specs, maybe we should invest in some lights or some new lenses and really ride that camera until the shutter falls out. I mean, I've had this Canon 5D Mark II since 2009 and it still works great and takes pictures every time. But if you must get a new camera, maybe you're switching from your phone to a DSLR, then I do have some things you should look for. Luckily, our food doesn't move off the table. We take pictures one at a time, and we rarely shoot in low light conditions. So things like high ISO, fast autofocus, and a huge amount of frames per second in a camera is really not needed. For me personally, I'm looking at 4 things in a camera for food photography, and I'll just rattle them off real quick. The first is the megapixel to price ratio. I mean, you're gonna wanna have a camera that's able to capture all the amazing details in the food, but you're gonna still wanna have money left over to buy food, not only to eat, but to shoot. So I think that's where a lot of beginners make their first mistake, is they go out and buy the biggest megapixel beast on the market when it's really not that necessary. I mean, back in the day, agencies used to require something like a 8 megapixel camera, and then they bumped it up to 10, and that was primarily for print reasons. Most modern cameras have well over 20 megapixels, which is more than enough. I mean, could I make this same story that I made here today using a 20 megapixel crop sensor camera? Yeah, sure. I mean, why not? I mean, I would personally suggest sticking with a megapixel count that not only fits your budget, but also fits the type of projects you're currently working on. If you're shooting a lot of images for the web, maybe you don't need that huge megapixel monster. Now, number 2 is tethering abilities. 99% of the time, my camera is attached to my computer or tethered to my computer using a cable like this one. This is one that's from Tethering Tools. It's a USB 3.0 cable, but many different companies make them. Now, it's really great for when your camera is high above the table. You don't want to climb up on the ladder and check, the back of the camera every single time you take an image. You want to see it nice and big on the computer screen. It's awesome for when you're checking your focus or your composition, really anytime. Even to keep the client from hovering over the back of your camera as you're, making photos. Now, you want to make sure that the camera you're looking at is compatible with Lightroom or Capture One. Now, not every brand, not every model of every brand is, and they update the program, every so often, but I had to wait almost a year for the 5DS to be compatible with Lightroom, but it works great with Capture One. Out of all the features in a camera, I think number 3 has to be hands down some good video capabilities. Now, I know that's not photography related per se, but with the rise of all the food recipe videos, the food videos, just videos in general, storming the web, storming the market, it becomes more and more important for food photographers especially to have some great video skills, and to have a camera that gives you that ability is going to be a huge tool in your bag. Now, it doesn't have to be 4K. I still upload all of my videos at 1080p to YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. But if I'm looking for a new camera for food photography, I'm definitely going to be checking out the reviews and making sure that camera has some great video features. Number 4 would just be all the extra goodies and features in a camera that make my life as a food photographer that much easier. My 2 personal favorites are articulating LCD screens and Wi-Fi, but sadly not every camera model has these. I don't know why, but it's not really a deal breaker if it doesn't. The camera I'm using right now doesn't have these features. However, I do have cameras that do, and I can really appreciate the value of those features. Like the articulating LCD screen, when your camera's above the table, you can flip that out, rotate it, and check your composition. And it's really something that I think every studio photographer can appreciate. The Wi-Fi app is great. You can download it to your phone, your iPad, and you can check your images, your composition, your focus there. You can even pass it off to clients, and they can see what you're doing in real time while you're at the table. It even has a nice little camera remote that you can fire off frames without even having to touch your camera. And I think these are 2 great features that every food photographer should be looking for in a camera. Let me get back to this story, because it's not like I'm against buying new cameras. I love new gear, and I upgrade my camera when I need to. But what's the famous saying? Your first 10,000 images are going to be your worst, and most modern cameras, shutters, they're rated at 150,000, 200,000 plus. So by the time you do make that one really good image at 10,001, you're still going to have so many great images to make before that camera shutter burns out. And hey, who knows how long it takes to make that second really great image, but I think that's what you should be striving for before a new camera. Hell, I'm striving for it, and I think we all should be. I'm a really firm believer in putting the vision before the tech and the story before the gear. But hey, I got to get out of here. I got to buy this new lens I've been looking at. No, I'm just kidding. If you like this video, please give it a subscribe, a thumbs up, a comment in the section below, and I'll see you in the next one.